Today, we celebrate my 30th birthday. It's a big birthday for most people, but especially for me. On today's episode, we're going to talk about why this birthday is so special for me, my journey here, and my plans for the future. Plus, stick around to the end and you'll find out why this channel is called Pink Vulpine Productions. Hi, I'm Beth Fox. Most of my doctors told me I'd never live to make it to 30, but here I am, living independently with multiple disabilities. So, welcome to my channel. Main thing that makes this birthday so special for me is that it marks that I've beaten the odds twice. Initially, the doctors told my parents they didn't expect me to make it to birth, but I surprised them and I did. Then, throughout my life, most of the doctors didn't expect me to make it to adulthood and told me that it would be a miracle to see my 30th birthday, but here I am. I have personally struggled to see myself past my 20s. I've wanted the doctors to be wrong, and I've sought out my current medical team who have been more optimistic and fought alongside me to help me survive. But it's still been really hard to picture myself beyond this point. So it really is a literal miracle that I'm here today. And I recognize that a lot of people with similar conditions haven't had the same chance to fight that I have. And so that's a big reason why I want to celebrate still being here today. So I rented a shelter at a local park and invited a bunch of people who have meant a lot to me and helped me get here in my journey, including some former teachers and current doctors and other members of my medical team, friends and family, people from my church, and some others. I got a bunch of cool decorations. I went with the pale pink and rose gold theme, of course. I got some balloons that spell out my last name, Fox, and a banner that reads Happy 30th Birthday. We've got lots of gold centerpieces and pink streamers hanging around the shelter. I also hired a local baker to make this lovely and delicious fox cake. It's a chocolate hazelnut cake, and I went with a pink fox to match the pink theme, and for reasons that will make more sense at the end of this video. We also had a variety of cupcakes at the party. My housemate and I made some funfetti cupcakes, very reminiscent of childhood, and my lovely friend made some gluten-free mocha cupcakes because I love chocolate and coffee, so that had to happen. And then we also had some caffeinated dirt pudding because baking fails have to be remedied. Wink, wink. And who doesn't love that kind of reminiscence of childhood with caffeine? It was really great that I was able to have the party outside because it reduced the COVID risks to a level I felt comfortable with and allowed me to invite all of these people and just really be able to enjoy this time and relax and celebrate with them. It was also a pet-friendly celebration, and I took baby Casey to the park. She even had her own little party hat. She wasn't super thrilled, but she was adorable. I wanted to have a guest book for my friends to sign in, but I decided to go with this cute book-shaped box that I decorated for the occasion, and then index cards so that my friends could write large enough that I could easily read their messages. And then I could keep those cards and any other little trinkets to remind me of the party in this box. And then I could keep that up on my bookshelf just like a guest book. Then after the big celebration, I had a few close friends who I knew were vaccinated back over to my house for dinner and board games. Overall, it's been a great and wild ride on my way to 30. Just like anyone else, my past 30 years has brought its share of pain and trials. But when I look back, what I remember most is the laughter and joy and great memories made with friends. My journey to living independently and joyfully with multiple disabilities has certainly been a rocky one. While I've lived with my conditions my whole life, they're also progressive. So I've been losing abilities and coming to terms with what my new limitations are my whole life. Everything's been constantly changing. The one thing that never changed in my life was my reliance on God. He was my strong rock, and my faith in him was the primary thing that kept me going. However, there are also some very great people who helped me through some incredibly dark times. In high school, I had a lot of trouble with bullying, but I had teachers at school and friends at church who were there to support me. Just so you know, this next part of the video does include some emotional triggers. So if you're not in a good space to hear a story about suicide, that's okay. Just go ahead and click the link in the description to skip ahead. As I said, the bullying was really bad at my high school, and that included both verbal and physical abuse. I had a solid group of friends at church, but only a few at school. My disability was less obvious then, but I had an awkward gait, and because of the assistive technology I used, I pulled a literal suitcase around with me, so I was a prime bullying target. I got shoved into lockers and ground against brick walls, and I was called every colorful name you could imagine. My school administration didn't do anything to address the bullying problem. In fact, they refused to even acknowledge that there was a problem. So I joined the student council, but that didn't go anywhere either. The school eventually held an anti-bullying seminar, but that went nowhere, as my worst bullying incident happened as I was exiting that very seminar. One of the worst places for bullying was the school cafeteria. This is not only where we had to eat lunch, but also where we were supposed to go before school. Thankfully, I had some awesome allies who helped me avoid this area. One of those allies was my chemistry teacher, Mrs. Ritchie. She let some friends and I eat lunch on a bench outside of her classroom, and she would let me come up to her classroom before and after school each day. On the odd days she wasn't available, like Thursday, because that was grocery day for Miss Ritchie, I would go sit across from a few classrooms where I knew there were teachers who were willing to step in if anything happened. Bullying wasn't the only thing I was dealing with. I was also dealing with a lot of dysphoria about my identity as part of the disability community. The way I was raised, I was taught that I needed to hide my disability, that it was important for me to present and function as normally as possible. Society just seemed to confirm this message that the more normal I could appear, the better. Because of this, I felt that it was wrong to be disabled, and I couldn't let that be part of my identity. However, at this point in my life, it was becoming harder and harder to hide my disability, and the effort it was taking to try to do so was really wearing me down, and it was just incredibly exhausting. And it was even beginning to challenge my faith. I kept reading scriptures about how Jesus was healing the blind and the lame, and I was getting angry because I felt that I was born in the wrong time. Because if I had been born in the days when Jesus walked the earth, I could have gone up to him and been the woman in the crowd who touched his robe and been healed. And then I realized that the same Jesus who walked the earth was the same God that I prayed to now, and that meant that he had the same power to heal me. And he wasn't. And I was so hurt and angry and confused because I didn't understand how a good and perfect God could make something like me, who was so obviously broken and flawed, and have the power to fix it, and just sit by and refuse to do anything but watch me sit there and beg. So many people obviously disdained me and I truly felt that I was a burden on the few who did care for me. So I began to think that maybe I just wasn't meant for this world. That it would be kinder for the few people who did care about me if I just wasn't here. And I had truly convinced myself that those handful of people would be better off once I was gone. I had a plan. I wanted it to look like an accident, so no one would feel guilty over my death. And if you're watching this today, please don't feel guilty. That was the whole point. I didn't want anyone to know. And so I began to enact my plan. Then my phone rang. And I answered, because it had to seem like a normal night, and that's what I would do on a normal night. It was my friend Mike from church. And he said to me, "Hey, I know we normally just text, but tonight, I don't know why, but I felt like I needed to call you and make sure that you weren't about to do something that we'd both regret." I thanked him, but I was so angry because he'd ruined my plan. You see, I was afraid that if I went through with things now, that he would figure it out, and that he'd know that it wasn't an accident. He had no idea, but he saved my life that night. I told him a few years later, and I thanked him genuinely when I was in a better place. The next Sunday, my youth minister pulled me aside. He could tell I wasn't in a great place, and we started meeting and talking about all my feelings about my lack of healing and what it meant for my life. He helped me come to terms with my disability and to see that God did have a plan for creating me this way, that it wasn't an accident or a mistake, but an intentional design. And to be patient for that intention to be revealed to me. He was the first person to tell me explicitly in words that it is not bad or wrong to be disabled or to identify that way. That opened up a whole new life for me. I didn't have to hide anymore. And that's a huge part of why it was so important for me to go to college in a new town, so I could start over in a lot of ways and feel like I could really be who I was meant to be. College had its challenges, especially as a student with disabilities, but it was absolute freedom compared to high school. I was homesick for my youth group because they were like a second family for me, and going back to visit my hometown was really hard. But accessing accessibility tools like my cane was a total game changer for me. Finally, I could use these tools and nobody questioned it because I wasn't around people who had seen me functioning without them my entire life. It was simultaneously terrifying and freeing. For better or worse, the first thing people knew about me was that I was disabled. This identity comes with a lot of stereotypes to combat. but it is part of who I am, and that means everything to me. I finally found a team of doctors and medical personnel who were willing to fight with me instead of just telling me that I was doomed. So, overall, things were looking up. One of my main goals is to be a positive adult role model for kids with disabilities and to show them that it's possible to be in the world today, living and thriving with disabilities, and that they have a world of possibilities in front of them. While there are some things I'll probably never be able to do, like drive a car or run a marathon, there are plenty of things that I can do. For example, I was told I would never be successful in college, yet I was able to obtain 2 master's degrees. There are so many harmful stereotypes out there, and society has perpetually low expectations for people with disabilities. I've already had some opportunity to be an influence in this way by babysitting for kids with disabilities and volunteering in a middle school classroom for kids with disabilities. Since most of the kids I've had the opportunity to work with have either been very young or have had some sort of intellectual disability, most of my influence has been with their parents. But their parents have told me that I've opened their eyes to see the possibilities, to see that the things that the society and the doctors have told them, that those limits aren't the true reality for their kids. And they've thanked me just for being there. And I want to continue to do that. And I want to encourage others with disabilities to come out and just help dismantle these stereotypes. I want to make it so hard for society to continue these stereotypes so that these kids don't have to fight so hard against them in the future. And that really is the heart behind Pink Vulpine Productions. So here it is, the moment of the hour, the reason behind the name. Pink is my favorite color. Vulpine is the adjective for fox, like canine for dog or feline for cat. So, Pink Vulpine Productions. And until next time, Pink Vulpinites, choose kind, choose joy, and remember, you're never alone.